All right. Welcome to the Behavior Blueprint Podcast. You guys are so lucky today because Gerry has joined me. We are a modern day Brady Bunch. Gerry and I have been together for a while now, and we are a big old blended family. We are both divorced, and Gerry comes with 4 boys.
Yeah, 16 through 9.
And I come with 3 girls, and we all live in one big old house. So we are going to talk about blending parenting styles, perspective on behavior, and what it looks like to create all this chaos. We also have 2 very large dogs. We have a Greater Swiss Mountain Dog, which, if you don't know what that is, go look it up because he's the most handsome dog to ever exist. And then we have a St. Bernard puppy who's 120 pounds and currently in heat.
Yeah, that's a mess.
That's an experience. So we just add more and more chaos to our household. So, by the way, as we get more into this topic, on my website, I have a section called The Club where we talk more about these things. So if you are curious about blending families, divorce, co-parenting, we're going to touch on some of it today. We're not going to go too in depth because I don't know if you guys want to hear that or not. But if you do want to know more about that, you can join the club, or we can talk about future podcast episodes that get more into all of that.
Well, that'd be fun.
Hi, I'm Mandy Grass, the family behaviorist, and these are 3 of my favorite little humans.
Hi, I'm on this podcast. Let's do this.
Let's do this. This is the Behavior Blueprint where we can figure out why kids do what they do.
Is that why parents yell sometimes?
Sometimes, because parenthood is messy, behavior is complex, but with the right blueprint, we can figure it out together.
Yeah!
All right, Gerry, so why don't you tell them your background about your divorce and your single daddom and then our blending?
I was married for about 10 years, and then, that fell apart. And I don't know how in depth we want to get there.
Enough. Yeah, divorce.
And so then I was a single dad for about 4 years and struggled with that and figured out how to do that, and never anticipated being a single dad, but did the best I could. And then, met you, and we kind of hit it off right away, which was amazing.
So that is one question we got. Do you want to tell the story of how we met?
Yeah, because my story is factual and your story has like a little bit of, make believe in there. But our friend set us up. So I have a best friend who I've known since I was 17 years old and he was 16 years old. And we worked together back when we were teenagers. And then we remained really close friends. He was my best man at my wedding. And he suggested, if I would be willing to date somebody with children. And I was like, of course I'd be willing to date somebody with children. I have children, so it would be kind of hypocritical to want to date somebody who doesn't have children. And so he was like, okay, well, let me ask. And then, his wife asked, and at the time Mandy wasn't ready to be dating, and so I got turned down. And then he contacted me later on and was like, hey, remember I told you that I might be able to set you up. Are you interested in getting set up? And I was like, sure. And he's like, well, do you want to double date or do you want to do anything like that? And I was like, no, just give me your number and I'll contact her and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, that is a story of how we met in terms of our relationship, but that is not how we met.
Oh, you mean our...
So Becky, my friend was my friend and his friend, our husband and wife. So she reached out to me and was like, oh, we have someone to set you up with. And I was like, oh my God, who? And she sent me a picture. And I was like, oh my God, I know him. I worked with him for like a year. In fact, I thought he was so cute. I told Gerry this story and he goes, we were both married. And I was like, I wasn't hitting on you. You were like my work crush. I thought you were handsome. No clue that he'd ever worked with me.
And the only interaction I ever remember having you when we worked together was me going into your room and you were sitting there wearing a dress, and I went up to you and I was like, hey, I have this student, and the expectation is that like I'm just going to put my hands on top of his hands because we're working with power tools and like do the best we can. And you were like, whatever you do is great. And then that's the only interaction I ever remember with her.
And by the way, Gerry is a high school tech ed teacher.
And at the time we were both in the middle school.
Yes, and I was a middle school special ed teacher. Well, Gerry doesn't remember that. So yeah, that's how we met, and we started dating. So we started dating, and one of the backstories is we started being pretty serious pretty quickly.
Right away, I came forward and I was like, can you not date anybody else? I would just want to date you. Because I had dated a number of people.
A number of people.
Small number of people.
So many people.
I had dated some people before Mandy, and then Mandy and I just meshed so well together, and I loved her energy. And so right away, I was like, this is somebody who I want to continue seeing, and I want it to be exclusive. So I asked.
Yes. So we started dating and we didn't introduce our kids for 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
I did meet your ex-wife before I met the kids. I asked you if she was comfortable with that. And just because I felt like it was serious and wanted, Gerry's kids are older, they're teenagers. So I wanted to show that kind of respect and get to know her. So that was good. And then we met each other's children.
Yeah, but even before we met each other's children, like our children did have some interactions.
Yes.
Like we sent each other photos and we sent each other videos and we kind of introduced our kids. We even did like a this is who I am and this is how old I am videos of our children to each other. Kind of spontaneously that one happened.
Yeah.
So like our kids were aware of each other and they had seen each other long before first I met the girls, your girls, and then later you met my boys, and then we brought them all together.
Yeah. And so you met my girls and I met your boys within like a week or two of each other, though.
Yeah, I mean, I met your girls on New Year's Eve.
Yes.
That was a we weren't planning that. And then all of a sudden, Mandy was like, hey, by the way, what do you think about coming up to New Year's Eve? And I was like, well, it seemed like a low pressure situation because the girls all had friends there. And like, so it could be like a meet, but not a whole lot of pressure on like hanging out with them or anything like that. So it seemed like a good idea. And that was pretty spontaneous. And then I invited you over for dinner like a week later or so, where it was like, we're going to sit down, we're going to have dinner. And then they'll be like, the dinner will be done. And if you wanted to leave, that would be like the exit time, you know.
Okay. How would you describe your parenting style before we met?
I mean, I think I was pretty strict. My boys describe me as a boy dad. When I say no, it's usually a hard no. And so that's before we met. And in general, I think, during single dad life, there was like a lot of like, I have to say no here. And so I'm just sticking to it.
Okay. Do you think your parenting style has changed in London?
Yeah. I mean, drastically.
Okay.
I'm much softer.
You are much softer.
I'm much softer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you've just helped me. The girls have helped me. My children have helped me, right? Be more understanding, be more compassionate, be more empathetic. And so certainly there's still, I didn't give up my parenting style. Like I still feel like myself, but just like simple interactions that I would have with the girls early on, right? You'd come to me after and you'd be like, listen, this is how you sounded. And I was like, I don't want to sound like that. I didn't want to sound that harsh or that abrasive, and so I've worked on it.
Yes, you absolutely have worked on it. And Parker will testify to that.
Yes, she does. Absolutely.
For example, in the summer, Parker had maybe like a third of her sandwich left or a quarter of her sandwich. We were at the beach and Parker just like threw it in the sand. And Gerry was like, what are you doing? And Parker was embarrassed. And I was like,
it was in front of her friends and everything else. And I think like for me, I was just like, what are you doing? Like, who throws a sandwich in the sand? Like, But if you don't grow up going to the beach, you just think maybe that's what you do because the seagulls will get it or whatever else, right? So, and you're 7, so like, you don't know. And
how do you think how you grew up shaped your parenting?
So, I mean, I've told you, right? And maybe this is a little bit, too harsh, but like I described my parents as harsh and harsher or something like that at the time, you know. Like my mom was the muscle and then my dad came in as the bigger muscle, so I grew up in a big family. I had five kids, and so there was a lot of like, it's got to be done this way. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't any room to negotiate at all. Whereas nowadays there's plenty of room to negotiate, and I see the benefits in that.
All right. What were some of your biggest fears of blending?
Oh, I mean, I was just nervous about whether your girls would like me, right? And whether our children would get along, and how much that would change everything.
Yeah. If you're watching this, I'm smiling because like I'm an overthinker and an overanalyzer. And I was like, well, what about this? And what about this? And Gerry was like, it's going to be fine. It's great. And then I would overanalyze that. And I was like, am I forcing you to be the calm, steady one because I'm the overanalyzer? To which the answer is yes, although you'll never quite admit that.
I mean, I'll admit that you are an overanalyzer and overthinker. Absolutely.
Listen, it has brought me a whole career. We're good with that. All right. What is something you or we totally underestimated about blending our family?
Oh, I think just how little time we have together, right? But also just how much more there is, right? Like, back last spring, I was going to maybe 3 or 4 different things on a weekend or on a Saturday, and now we're going to 6 or 7 different things on a Saturday.
So all of our kids are heavily involved in extracurriculars, mostly athletic, but our oldest is definitely into the arts and stage crew. And so's Lola, yep. So there are a lot of commitments. In the fall, I can't remember the number. Right now, I think we're on 9 teams. 10 teams? No, wait, that's not right at all. Hold on. How many teams are we on?
7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9. No,
Paul's
10,
on
10, 11.
Yours.
Yeah, I think so. I think 11.
And then plus the girls all dance. So if you count each of those.
So that would be 14.
13 to 14 things. Yeah. So it's a lot to juggle. And the difference, we moved in together in August. In the fall, we played, that was mostly soccer. So it was like a lot of just weekend commitments. And the spring sports don't care about your weekends. Baseball does not care if it's a Friday night at 7:45 p.m.
Nor does lacrosse. It could be a Wednesday and you're traveling an hour away for a 6:30 game.
And it can change on a whim. Yeah. So I think that was a big adjustment for the spring. All right. What has helped the kids feel safe, do you think, in our home?
I mean, I think that we're a place that they can talk. Where like they can come and talk to us, right? Like my kids really can come and talk to you. You've been honestly like a breath of fresh air for them, I think, because they feel totally comfortable coming and talking to you. And so I think just giving them a safe space to know that we're listening, right? Like we listen, we're not judging, and so giving them an area to just like unload on us sometimes, I think, and we just listen, and then we take that to heart and try to do better the next time.
So somebody had sent us in a question about our parenting. Do you find yourself having less patience with your stepkids? I would say for me, I'm the exact opposite.
I would say I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Like I have, like with my boys, I'm still can be a little bit direct and abrasive. And I would tend to lean towards like I'm almost never that way with the girls.
Yeah, you've definitely toned that down.
And you are so patient with my boys.
Yeah, I'm not patient with my own girls' rooms. Although I went into one room today, and if they had been home, I probably would not have been as patient.
I bet.
Yeah. Somebody also asked us in terms of rooms and like gender. So we have a 5-bedroom house. 6-bedroom house. And
we converted one of the offices.
We converted office to a very small bedroom that fits like essentially just Marley's bed and dresser. And then 4 kids share rooms, like 2 and 2. And so like my 2 girls share and 2 of your boys share.
My 2 youngest boys
So
share.
we didn't cross genders at all. And there is a little bit of discrepancy there because, for example, our 13-yeold shares a room. And he's sort of like, why does Marley get her own? I'm like, Marley's in a shoebox. But also the reason is because then the genders would have to share, and so that's complicated.
Also, like just to point out, like so my 2 youngest boys shared a room previously in my house, and I had a spare bedroom, and they neither one moved into it. So when we moved into this house, I was like, okay, it seems like you guys can share a room still.
Yeah, my girls shared a room as well. We should share what our home looks like. So I have the girls 96% of the time. They go with their dad on Tuesdays and Thursdays for a few hours. And you are 50-50.
I'm 50-50, so Mondays and Tuesdays are mine, and then every other weekend. So it's like a 2-2, 5-5 split.
Yeah. So at any given time, it can look a little bit different. I think everybody's pretty familiar with that. It just gets tricky when weekends get switched.
Yeah. I mean, my ex-wife and I are really good about switching and kind of keeping the kids, in the focus of like what's best for them. And I think it's just always tricky when you switch and suddenly the schedule gets flipped around.
Yeah. So, like, for example, when we went on vacation, we switched, which was great. So we ended up having the kids for 3 weekends. But the flip side of that is like, then we didn't have them for 3 weekends, which I'm sure their mom feels the same way, but that's just a tricky thing for us to like navigate. How do you feel our discipline differs? And one thing I will say is I think you're much better at being consistent across the kids. So, and I think Gerry's probably like this in your classroom. Like you are very consistent in the way that you handle things that people have done. You're direct with everybody. Like I definitely am not as consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're inconsistent. I just think there's how are we different? That's what we're answering.
Yeah, like how do we discipline differently?
Yeah, I mean, I just think again, like sometimes, like when I say no, there's still like no negotiating, right? Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And when you say no, there's always negotiating.
Right. I also have trouble saying no.
Yeah, you do have trouble saying no. And I also have some trouble saying no, just for different things. Right?
Gerry won't say no to projects or like helping somebody. I will, like one time I came home and it was a pretty crazy day. It was a Tuesday and I had somewhere to go that night. We had all the kids and one of our kids asked to go to a basketball game. You had already said no. And I was like starting to do like checkers or chess. And I was like, if we move this, this, and this, we can still do it. So that's where I pile on sometimes. I'm like, yeah, no, we can do it all.
Yeah, no, I mean, we do it all. We can do it all. It's just that sometimes like on those things I say no because like the afternoon's already planned and like you're running here and I'm running there and then you're coming back and I'm coming back and they're going to go. So like it just becomes to like throw a little monkey wrench in. And then my son sometimes won't have any details. So it's like, okay, well, when do you want to leave? Oh, I don't know. Well, when are you going to come back? Oh, I don't know. Well, that makes it difficult to plan the afternoon and driving around, right?
Absolutely. All right. Somebody asked, what was it like for you to learn about behavior and functions of behavior, etc.?
Really interesting. I mean, it was hammered into me, but no, it was really interesting because the thing that stuck right is that like if you want a behavior to change, something needs to change. You can't just like drive a wedge into something and keep hammering that wedge and then expect different outcomes, right? And so that was fairly enlightening. I mean, super simple, but also fairly enlightening.
Yeah, and I remember this when back in Killingworth with Marley one time. She was being particularly whiny, and you were like, if that was one of my boys, I would have sent them to their room. And I was like, oh. And now listen, I didn't agree with sending her to her room, but the point you were making was that it was like all attention maintained. Mm-hmm. And so there's been a couple of those over the years where like, I'm like, oh, you're right. So it's one of those things where you can do it for a living, but you can't see all the facets that you're involved in. And I think you do a good job of seeing that. The other example is Lola riding Teeny. Lola used to ride Teeny and I was like, it's her ADHD. She just like has sensory injuries. Like, oh, no, it's attention. And I was like, you're wrong. And then Lola was like, when you don't pay attention to me, I ride the dog. And I was like, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
So you do a better job of seeing those things that I am a part of.
Well, yeah, because when you're in it, that's the thing. Like when you're in it, it's really hard to take a step back and look, with a different lens. So that's where we help each other out,
Yeah. What in our parenting styles do you think differ and or are problematic?
No, I mean, I think we just have some differences, especially surrounding food. We had some major differences surrounding food and, what the kids can eat and how that looks.
Go a little bit more in depth than that. That's very broad stroke. What were our differences around food? I mean, you had a great rule where it's like, if you can always eat cucumbers or apples or yogurt or whatever your three were. Yes.
And my rule was eat what's on your plate. And so old school, right? Like I had to clean my plate as a kid, right? And also I grew up in a big household and it was like, if you wanted seconds, you ate a little bit faster so you could get the seconds. And my dad particularly hammered in like, I worked hard for this food and it's on the table. and your mom made it or whatever. And that was how I grew up. My mom made all the food. Right. So that was like ingrained in me. Right. And so I had a lot of like, this is the food. I worked for it, and you should just be super grateful and respectful to be having the food. A little bit unrealistic, I think.
When you first started coming over for dinners, I'm not a clean plate club. I'm not going to like give you choices to tons of other foods, but like if you don't eat dinner, okay. And I don't think I've ever given a ton of other choices after dinner.
No, you don't give a lot of choices. It's just that like there is options, right?
But when Gerry came to dinner, so my kids eat, I don't know, anywhere from like 50 to 80% of their dinner. So then Gerry was eating everybody's, not because he was hungry, not because he wanted more food, but
it was
because
also good. It was also good.
Yeah. And I was like, what's happening here? Why are you doing that?
I mean, yeah, there's some good food, but also like I didn't understand the idea of just throwing food away.
Right. And so I think that this is a really interesting gender dynamic because I think, when you're a woman of a certain age, almost 40, and you're raising girls, I am not clean plate club. I want to teach my girls to like shut off when they're done and to eat what feels right and that kind of stuff.
Right. And I think the only rub there a little bit is like, I'm going to not eat this, but then, tell you I'm not hungry or tell you my stomach hurts. And then within a half an hour, be like, oh, can I go get a string cheese? And can I go get a this? And it's like, yeah, of course you can, because it's healthy or good protein for them or whatever. But it's like, what's happening here?
Mm-hmm. Okay. How long do you think it took us to adjust to, I think, mostly moving in together?
I mean, we're still adjusting, right?
Yeah. I joke. Gerry makes fun of me because I'm like, every 6 weeks our schedule changes. And like the fall was difficult. So the girls and I moved to the town Gerry and his kids already lived in. Gerry moved like, I don't know, a half mile away.
Yeah, not even.
A quarter mile away. And I think we did a good job. The girls were really prepped. The girls were young. They were excited. Gerry's kids are older. They were in high school and middle school. And so that was definitely the right decision for our family. The house was the right house for our family. But I used to coach the girls and I like knew the parents for 9 years. And so suddenly I was on like a different sideline with different people. And so like, okay, we got that under our belt. And then I was nervous for spring too. So for lacrosse, not only did we move towns, but it's like a regional lacrosse team. So it's not even the girls from our school. So like even the friends or the parents that I did start to make, none of them play lacrosse. So it's like starting all over again. So I think as we go through the whole year, and then one of Gerry's favorite points is like, yeah, and my kids are in high school. It's going to change every 6 months for the rest of our lives now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with the girls being younger, there was a lot of like being in full control. Yeah. Right. And for me, I had already moved into that second stage or fifth stage of parenting where it's like your kids are making plans with their friends and then coming up and asking you like, this is what I'm doing. And so I was already in it. And then we had to kind of get Mandy in that. And that's been difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been challenging.
Yeah. Do you hate that I use so many knives?
No, that's an inside joke.
You're a part of it too. Okay, here's part of the thing. In the morning, we have 2 waves of breakfast. So when the first wave is done with Nutella, for example, Gerry's family puts Nutella down, and now my girls do as well.
Yeah, it's very healthy for you.
And I clean as I go, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, you take things out of my hand while I'm using them. That's how you clean. No, I have some particular things like with knives where like you don't mix the knives with other things and stuff like that. But like, no, we use lots of knives because we have one round of breakfast that gets wrapped up and then we have another round. And certainly we're not like leaving knives out just in case somebody else is also having peanut butter. Yeah. Right. Like that, we have a dishwasher and that washes our dishes. Yeah.
All right. How do we balance our home and our parenting and our co-parents?
I mean, how do we balance it? Do we balance it? I mean, it's just, some days are a struggle. Mm-hmm. Some days are fantastic. And it seems super easy and it's a breeze. But I think the most important thing that, we've also just recently refocused on is like spending some evening time, just the 2 of us, to talk about how the day went, to talk about what's ahead, to talk about our feelings, and to share out.
Yeah. One of the questions here was, how do you not show favoritism? So, for example, Parker loves Gerry. Also, with the first to be critical now that I think about it, but Parker loves Gerry. She loves my dad. She loves my nephew. I think she really like attaches to male figures in our lives. And so one of the things is we talk a lot. I think, especially with some of your older kids, when we go to New Hampshire in the winter, we're never in one car because there's 9 of us. So we have 2 cars. And so my car is an open front seat, which helps very much with getting teenagers in my car. So
Front seat's a hot commodity.
my mom always said growing up, like, if you want to talk to a kid, put them in the car for a few hours. And so I will say, like, my relationship with each of your kids definitely developed more when we were going to New Hampshire. But for example, one of your sons said to me the other day in the car, was like, Parker really loves dad. And I was able to be like, well, yeah, I think that she really values, you know, the male relationships in her life. And like, so we're able to talk about those things sort of how, as they come up. It would be interesting to get the kids' perspectives on this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have a favorite child. I think all of our kids would probably say like something different. Like Lola would definitely pick somebody other than her. Right. But then one of the boys might pick Lola. Right. So no, I don't think we have a favorite. I think we do the best we can to like be steady with each and every one of them. Right?
Okay, so I want to touch on a couple of cool things I think we did in terms of blending, because there were some questions about how we blended. So we went on vacation together last summer, and we prioritized one-on-one time with an adult with each kid. They got to pick the adult, and that was great. The kids, we each like did something different with them. Truthfully, they mostly pick me, but you know.
They will always mostly pick you.
Yeah. And then for Christmas, each kid got a coupon to go to a lunch or dinner with us whenever they want.
Yeah, whenever they want, as long as it like worked out. So like if you give us enough notice, like, and I think everybody picked you on that one.
And last year, and we, in my home, we do a birthday tradition of eating, not eating, but like donuts in mom and dad's bed and your presents first thing in the morning on your birthday. And I never thought that was weird until I invited 5 other people into my bed to open Lola's birthday presents.
Also, that was spontaneous, right? Where like Lola handed off her presents.
So that's what I was going to say.
That's
so Lola
amazing.
was the first birthday that we did this with, and we had a bunch of presents, and she handed a present to each kid, and so every kid opened a present, and so then that's been the standard ever since.
Yeah, that's
also, it was genius
tradition
of them, because now we need to make sure they have at least 7 things to open, because each kid gets a present.
I mean, Lola, very forward thinking.
Very forward thinking. Yeah. So I think we've done a lot of that. I think we don't usually divide by family in terms of like, if we're like, okay, get in the cars, it doesn't usually happen.
No, it doesn't typically divide out by family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have forgotten a child before. Being in 2 cars is difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being in 2 cars is difficult. We have, kind of tossed around the idea of one larger car.
We're about to have another licensed driver, so we'll be fine.
Yeah. And also, I mean, we're rarely kind of going all in one place. It does happen, but we're usually going in multiple directions. So
okay. What is one thing you admire about each other as parents? I can go first.
Okay.
You do so much. So Gerry like runs the town. He's the president of the soccer board in town. He coaches as many kids as he can, even if he doesn't know the sport, he's coaching it. Like Gerry doesn't ever say no to anybody. If I'm like, hey, I have this idea, he's like, okay, let's do it. And then you like come home and it's done. You contribute so much to the running of our household. And the biggest thing that I admire is that you are like so steady and consistent. I don't think anybody, like, even if the kids are like, well, Dad's going to be mad about, like, you are very consistent in your responses. So I don't know, that just creates a sense of security, I think, for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. No, I'm not a big yeller. So like, even when the kids think I'm going to be upset, I'm just like, and I kind of take it in stride.
Yeah.
Even if I'm a little bit upset. For you, I think it just has to go with like how open and expressive you are, and how you get the kids to share their feelings and open up, and just the loving atmosphere that you've created.
Thank you. All right. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from blending?
Well, so like, I think we have a friend who has 2 kids, and he was going to introduce his girlfriend. And I remember sitting around with him and asking him like, oh, like, what are you guys going to do? And he was like, oh, we're going to go to a trampoline park. And I was like, okay, have they talked to her? Have they seen her? Have you done anything? And he was like, no. And I was like, man, that's a lot of pressure, both on her and your kids. And so I was like, you got to soft launch that. And we did it kind of organically and didn't even think about it, but soft launching the kids and the families and sharing. We shared our lives. We shared photos every day, videos every day. And I think that just went a huge way to like making all of our kids feel super comfortable once they were starting to be around each other, because they felt like they knew each other a little bit already. And so that's maybe one of the largest takeaways I have from us blending. And then just, I think also, you're super open-minded. I feel like I'm open-minded, right? Being open and understanding that, like, just because you're used to it, because that's the way it was in your house before, or that's the way you grew up, like, that doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. I work with a lot of single moms, to be completely blunt, but also single dads sometimes too. And sometimes they're dating or starting to blend, and you have to be on the same page with your partner. Like, even if that means you disagree in private or you talk about it, I've never felt like it was your kids and my kids. In fact, I think that's something you're better at than I am. Like, I will sometimes be like me and the girls, and I think you do a better job of being like our kids and stuff like that. But I mean, I never felt like you ever have been like, get your kid in line, or vice versa, or they can't act this way. Obviously, there's been things that have come up that we've had to talk about, like kids getting in trouble at school, or like, the impact of ADHD in our home, of which there are many children. But I've always felt like the partnership has to be there.
Yeah, the partnership has to be there. The willing to work with each other, willing to put in the effort, right? The time, being a good listener. I don't think we ever had a scenario where we were somewhere and either one of us were like, get control of your kid, or
right.
I can't believe they acted that way. Certainly we've been places where then later on in the evening we're like, hey, how did you feel about this? Or,
yeah.
I noticed this was going on. What are your thoughts about that? But you have to be on the same team.
Yeah.
We have consistently been on the same team. It's been amazing to feel that way. And you have to stay that way, right? Like, and it's not like a team versus kids. It's like our team is our family.
Mm-hmm. All right. What would you tell a newly blended family?
The days that seem bad, aren't going to seem that bad in the long run. You have so many more better days ahead of you, and it gets easier and easier. It gets better and better. I don't know. I've always been one of those parents where I've never had an age where my kids were that I disliked that age, right? Like, I certainly miss some ages, right? But like, I never disliked an age or been like, oh, I can't wait till they're not 3 anymore, or whatever. So I think just, continuing to be positive and looking forward.
Yeah. I think another part is, so obviously we both had, I'm going to say failed marriages. I don't know if there's another way to classify that.
Listen, our therapist said successful marriage.
Yeah. Oh, so also Gerry and I do have a couples therapist, just because what we're doing is insane and we're proactive. And yeah, our couples therapist said to us one day, like, you guys both had 10-year-long marriages. That's successful. You're good at relationships. I was like, that's a very interesting perspective. That's a reframe. It's a reframe.
Right? Yeah.
So we both obviously had long-term relationships. And I think when you come out of that, you're acutely aware of how you got there and what to do differently. I think one of the biggest things is we're still dating, right? Mm-hmm. So we're not like, my sister got offended when I said this to her the other day. I was like, it's not like we're 10 years in. And she's like, you can still date when you're 10 years in. I was like, yes, I know, but it just means we didn't experience each phase of life. Like, it wasn't like we were dating and then we moved in and then we got married and then we had our first kid and we like slowly adjusted to each of those. We were like, hey, this is absolutely insane. Wham. Everywhere we go, people laugh in our faces and say, what? Last week on Sunday after lacrosse, we went out to dinner, and the woman was like, these are all yours. What's wrong with you guys?
Yeah. And then when I was leaving, again, 2 cars because you went up to lacrosse before I went up to lacrosse because I had baseball. So I was with half the kids, you were with half the kids. We meet at lacrosse, we go out to dinner, and now we're leaving dinner, and you go one way, I go the other way, and the table next to me goes, "Whoa, you got a lot of kids there." And I was like, almost a basketball team.
Yeah. No, we have a basketball team with sons.
I said, I think I said almost 2 basketball teams.
So, but my sister was like, you can, and I said, it's very different. And that is at the core of our blended family is you and me.
Yeah. And I think also like, we want to still date, right?
Yes.
Like that's, I was always nervous when we first started dating that you didn't get to experience that midlife
Not
dating.
the way you did. No, I did not.
I mean, so I was always nervous about that, right? Like that you didn't, get to go have, lots and lots and lots of dates. I mean, some of us get to. I didn't get to, but some of us do get to.
Yeah. Okay. Just so you guys know, we'll end this on this note. When Gerry and I were set up, Gerry said, "Oh, sure. Don't even need dating apps. I'm set up all the time."
That's like, again, there are some parts of that story that are true. There are some parts of the story that are a little bit embellished.
Okay, so that was our episode about our blended family. Thank you guys so much for being here. As I mentioned before, on the club, we get into more in-depth topics like this. In February, we did a whole webinar on single parenting and co-parenting. So it's something I am unfortunately very familiar with. So if you ever want to talk more specifically about that, you can connect with me directly in the club. But other than that, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Behavior Blueprint Podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this so I can come back on.
Like, share, comment. That'll all help. Oh, and if you're not watching this, you need to watch it on video. Gerry's so handsome. All right. Thanks. If this podcast has helped you even a little bit, leaving a review is one of the biggest ways that you can help me. It helps other parents find the show, and honestly, it helps me know what's landing for you. You can do it right now while you're listening. I would really appreciate it. For information on topics like this and many more, come back to this podcast, The Behavior Blueprint Weekly, and you can always check out my content on Instagram and TikTok at The Family Behaviorist. Thanks so much.